you signed on to it as co-sponsors. I don't see many of you in here, by golly, that's neat. But this is a resolution simply asking the federal government to allow the states, or in this case, Kansas, to oversee Medicare Advantage administration, and that would be Medicare Part B, or sorry, C, and possibly D. There may be some overlap in the prescription as well. And so, and the reasoning behind this, I think everyone knows the problems that have been, that the Medicare program has on its Advantage section there. And it's really more of an insurance program that's associated with the federal program. So what we're asking the federal government for is to simply let us handle it as an insurance program, as we're a little bit more knowledgeable and flexible in dealing with our constituents rather than on a nationwide level. I'll open the hearing on HCR 5013, and we have one proponent. I'm assuming he's proponent. He's here anyway. Eric Turek. From the Kansas Department. Oh, it's still Insurance Department? Okay, from the Kansas Insurance Department. Take it away, Eric, and correct anything that I said.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Eric Turek from the Kansas Department of Insurance, and here to express our support for House Concurrent Resolution 5013. I think the chairman outlined the purpose of the bill. It's really to address an issue that's pervasive across the states, across every insurance regulator, the 50 departments of insurance, and especially in Kansas. As you know, we receive thousands of insurance complaints from the public each year. In Kansas, in 2024, 11% of those concerned Medicare Advantage. And these predominantly have to deal with in one way or another, these deal with the advertising and marketing aspects of those plans. Medicare Advantage is exclusively regulated by the federal government. We do license the insurance agents and the companies that sell these products, but we have no jurisdiction over Medicare Advantage at all. We do have jurisdiction over a Medicare supplement, and that's already confusing for policyholders. And I'll tell you that we receive a fraction of the amount of complaints concerning Medicare supplement than we do for Medicare Advantage. When we receive a complaint from the public on Medicare Advantage, we inform the consumer that we have no jurisdiction here. If you file a complaint with us, we will relay that to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, or they can contact them directly. So that would also, so the 11% of health complaints that concern those plans, that's the floor. We know that when we get the calls, we get the questions, they either go to CMS directly, they file a complaint with us and we send it to CMS, or they're just calling CMS directly, and we're not getting these complaints. But the issue has been pervasive since 2003, when CMS has started regulating the advertising and marketing aspects of these. Again, we cannot touch CMS does have some rules on the marketing and advertising of Medicare Advantage plans, though I would argue it's not effective at protecting consumers, as we continue to get these complaints time and time again. And this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is not a red state, blue state. This is really, this is an issue that all departments of insurance are facing across the country, and we need a federal legislative fix. And so the purpose of this concurrent resolution would be to urge Congress to change the law to allow states to regulate the marketing and advertising aspects of these plans. This comes down to a states' rights issue, a consumer protection issue. I'd be happy to answer questions.
All right. Representative Bergquist.
Could you give a brief explanation of the difference between the Advantage plan and a supplement?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Representative. So Medicare supplement is, and I'll profess not to be an expert on Medicare, but Medicare supplement is sold by private insurance companies. It's meant to fill in the gaps of Medicare. Original Medicare, it's a supplement to original Medicare. Medicare Advantage is more or less a cheaper plan than original Medicare. It combines Parts A and B. It sometimes can have also Part D, the prescription drug plan, and some other benefits as well. That's also sold by private insurance companies. Again, that Kansas regulates, but we cannot regulate those plans that they sell.
Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, sir. I'm a retired medical administrator, and I had a lady probably in her late 70s, early 80s who came in, and I had to tell her she had leukemia. In older adults, it grows very slow most of the time. And she said, I just bought more insurance so that I could have everything covered. And I said, what do you have already? Well, she already had 2 insurances. Humana had come in and said, you need 3. First of all, she only was going to pay Humana. She was never going to get a dime, a nickel, a penny. They don't work that way. But when you have an Advantage plan versus your Medicare and supplemental plan, your Medicare Advantage puts those insurance companies together. So instead of having a dual claim go in, you got one. And so quite often, that means they're going to pay a little bit less because they've combined their efforts. And Medicare has straight Medicare, and then your supplement comes in and picks up the other. The other thing is that on a dental, they say they include dental. They will do 4 bite wings and a cleaning above the teeth. And because that's not really an exam, but in many cases, they consider that fine. Hearing aids, we've had discussion on hearing aids here in insurance for years. Huh?
I didn't hear what you said.
Hearing aids.
Oh, gotcha.
And we tried to get them covered by insurance and stuff, but they're very expensive. And so there's been a bigger denial on that and putting it on as a mandate. So those are kind of your divisions in there, but you'll have a Medicare Advantage like Aetna Medicare. You might have Blue Cross Blue Shield Advantage. You could have a Cigna or a Humana, your basic insurances, and they will combine. So it's not the same coverage. They can say it is, but it isn't. And I would encourage anyone, go straight Medicare and get your secondary supplemental.
Yes, Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric, thank you for being here today and bringing this to us. I wish I had known I had the ability to sign on to this, because I would have. I've worked with, in my field as a medical social worker, I've worked with enrolling people and helping them get, different Medicare plans and trying to determine which ones work best for them. And we have consistently found issues with the marketing practices of Medicare Advantage plans, truly taking advantage of lower income folks who, by offering them gift cards and things like that, just seem really out of the scope for these plans. But so I appreciate you being here and supporting this resolution. I did have some questions though, so, and it could be for you or it could be for the revisor. I'm looking at page 2, line 3, beginning at line 3 and going through 7. So I see that we're talking about giving the state insurance regulators authority over Medicare Advantage plans. In that section, is it only Advantage plans or is it all Medicare plans? Do we know?
Eric?
I think the language is clear. It's authority over Medicare Advantage plans, and that's what we are in support of. Anything beyond that, like the regulation of Medicare, don't think that we've ever considered that before, and that's beyond the scope of this resolution. But we are in very strong support of the resolution as it's written and just for the Medicare Advantage plans. And I'd also like to add, Mr. Chairman, going off of Representative Meyer's comments on the lack of protections for consumers. In Kansas, we do have regulations on the books for Medicare supplement. And it goes a little bit above and beyond what's already in law and reg for standard health plans, because these plans are geared towards a more vulnerable population. I can't say, I'm privy to exactly what CMS has outlined for what is required when it comes to these advertisements. And what is deceptive and what's not deceptive, but I think it's very clear that that activity still persists, notwithstanding their efforts at CMS. So something clearly needs to be done. We think that this is one mode or one remedy there.
Mr. Chair?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up too, and yes, thank you. I think that they're very predatory in a lot of ways. The reason why I asked the question about only is and maybe I'm misunderstanding this, it's a very quick read that I made. And then in line 8 through basically 13, it just says Medicare plans only and not Medicare Advantage. So I just want to get some clarification on that, and because I realize that wouldn't be in your purview, that would be for CMS, but I wanted to make sure that we could clarify those sections. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that that's just a way to encapsulate also Medicare supplement and perhaps anything else that might fall there that's not original Medicare. But the department is not interested in regulating traditional or original Medicare. So,
Representative Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Eric, for being here on this. So how big a market? I mean, is this like $100 million in premiums? Like how much is it in Kansas?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. The premium written when it comes to Medicare supplement versus Medicare Advantage, I don't have those numbers in front of me. What I can tell you is that the last time I checked, I think 54% of Medicare eligible individuals are enrolled in or have a Medicare Advantage plan, and about 20% have a Medicare supplement plan. But the ratio of complaints that we receive, there's a huge disparity there.
Senator Bergquist. I'm sorry, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually,
One
sorry,
more.
if you don't
one
mind
moment,
holding on a
I'm
second. So as far as regulating this, I mean, obviously, it's a federal program. You can't set all the rules, but you would be anticipating, based on other insurance plans that have complaints, I mean, this is going to take 10 FTEs. This would be, how many extra people would you have to hire, do you think, based on your call volume?
Yeah, that's a great question. Had not entertained that, given that this would not authorize new FTEs, and federal action would come first. We would have to, we are already receiving the complaints. Now, if we were to receive as the sole recipient of the complaints concerning Medicare Advantage, yes, that would require perhaps 1, maybe 2 FTEs. I don't really want to speculate there. Also, the advertising would have to get approved by the department too. And so, I know I didn't mention this in my testimony, but Medicare supplement advertisements, they already have to be approved by the department and make sure that they are not deceptive and that they are compliant with rules and regs. And so I would anticipate perhaps some other compliance staff would also need to be hired too.
Final question.
One more.
So if you did have the authority, if this passed and if Congress gave us the authority, would you be able to do it strictly through rules and regs, or would there have to be like a bill coming through the House that gave you explicit authority? How would that work?
Great question. I might look to the reviser. I will say that in terms of the consumer protection regulations that we already have in place on the Medicare supplement, that's based on a model law that many other states have adopted, and there is no model law on the Medicare Advantage side, since that's not permissible under federal law. In terms of what's required when it comes to Kansas statute, should federal law change, there would have to be changes. I can't necessarily speak to what those would be right now, but I'll look to the reviser.
All right, I believe Eileen is ready to hit this ball.
I'm going to swing at the ball and hope that I don't miss, Mr. Chair. Look at me making a sports analogy. So It's important to realize this resolution has no force and effect of law, so keep that in mind. But if the federal government were to give the states this kind of power, this power has not existed in the state of Kansas prior to whatever action the federal government would take. So there would be no grant of authority to the Kansas Insurance Department allowing them to adopt rules and regulations to, administer that program. So most likely, because this is the way it typically works, there would be a bill, there'd be parameters set, and then within the bill, there'd be a grant of authority for rules and regs to administer the provisions of that bill.
All right. Representative Bergquist.
Just soaking up in what the revisor said, but Silverscript, does that sound familiar?
I cannot say so. Have not. Silver.
Silverscript, is it an Advantage plan?
Mr. Chairman, I profess I have not heard of that before, but if you have a specific question about,
It's the thing that plagues people that have contacted me, and Silverscript in their insurance plan, like Cigna, is thrown on them as a supplemental plan to what they've got for prescriptions, and the only way for them to not be in it is to opt out. So they throw it at them every year and say, you're in it unless you tell us by a certain date that you're going to be. So those are the kind of complaints I hear, and I wonder if you're trying to be in a position where you can be official liaison, not, as she said, a rule maker, but a liaison to within the system. Is that what you're saying?
well, certainly, Mr. Chairman, certainly we, regardless of whether the issue that your constituents may have or any Kansan may have, we are always happy to serve as the liaison between us and another agency, whether that be CMS or whether that be KDHE, whatever it may be, Medicaid, and so on. It's perhaps Silverscript is the plan in question is a Medicare Advantage plan, Medicare Supplement plan. I'm happy to chat with you offline and get you connected with our consumer assistance folks to figure that out.
Say I want to see why it is the insurance department or the Kansas Department of Insurance wants to help in this way, and how do you expect you might be able to help?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Why is this legislation, this resolution, why is it going to be helpful if it
Sure. When we serve as the liaison, if you will, to CMS, what they choose to do and how they choose to act on any violations, deceptive or otherwise, that's totally up to them. And I can tell you that what we've seen is that, notwithstanding those efforts, we still receive the complaints on Medicare Advantage. We would then be the regulator of the plans, or at least when it comes to the advertising aspects of those plans, rather than CMS. Rather than be the liaison, we would be the go-to, the regulator when it comes to the advertising. So perhaps that would be able to address your constituents' specific concerns. We'll chat offline and see if we can fix that issue, and if it's a Medicare Advantage or other issue.
Thank you.
All right, and just for clarification there, I know I'll look like a genius, but it was Eileen that tipped me off here. Silverscript is a Part D program, so that may very well fall under this, and it's managed by CVS. So there we go. All right. Further questions? Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, I wrote this down on a separate sheet. Could you tell me, are there any other states that are offering this type of resolution right now, or anyone joining in, so that we could possibly apply more pressure to Congress in this way?
Appreciate the question, Representative. I am aware that Minnesota, I believe that they passed a resolution, a concurrent resolution. I'm not entirely sure how their legislature works. I know that they passed some form, or they introduced some form of legislation that would do the same. In terms of formal resolutions and what other states are doing, across the country, I'm not privy to, but I can tell you that every single insurance department across the country and the commissioners are very unified in in their frustrations with Medicare Advantage and our inability to assist consumers fully and protect them.
Committee, further questions on this resolution? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Eric. All right, I have no one listed as a proponent, or no other people listed as a proponent, opponent, or neutral. So if you'd like to jump in, this would be a great time to do so. Seeing none, I'll close the hearing on HCR 5013. We won't be meeting again, and so I'd like, if there's no objection, to go ahead and they're sort of like rules. They're guidelines, really, more than anything else. But suspend the guidelines and go ahead and work HCR 5013. Is there objection to that? All right, I would entertain a motion. Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our aging population is expanding. I think we have more older than we do younger. If you're childbearing, go home and get busy, but many of us are not anymore. I don't say that in jest, but we have to do something that makes it more reasonable and more fair for our citizens. And this is one way to do it. I know there's a lot going on in Washington right now. We don't know what the department is going to look like. So maybe it's the time to step in and say, we want to take on this challenge to protect our citizens in Kansas and protect our more mature group when they're getting into Medicare or Medicaid Advantage. And so with that, I would move that we pass House Concurrent Resolution 5013 favorably for passage for reasons of discussion.
All right, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Meyer. All right, I would probably say that if just as far as the marketing practices are concerned, if this will stop them from calling me, I'm not eligible. All right, stop calling. Anyway, it makes it a great idea in my book. But is there further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. You may close, Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it doesn't matter how old you are, they keep calling. Anyway, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with that, I move. Did you have some first?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a point of clarification, the motion is that the House concurrent resolution be adopted.
Adopted, yes, okay.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that House concurrent resolution number 5013 be adopted.
Good with the second? Yeah. All right, very good. You may close.
I close.
All right. All those in favor of the motion to adopt HCR 5013, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Very good. HCR 5013 is adopted. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is our last meeting. And I'm serious this time, although we'll probably have to approve minutes at some point. But this is our actual last time sitting in the horseshoe this year. So I want to give a big hand to Carol, who has been keeping this game show running. And to Eileen, who makes me look intelligent every opportunity she gets. All right, and with that committee, oh, and legislative research. and well, absolutely, and our IT, we got to applaud IT. So Kirk can listen to us from his sick bed. And Eric Turek, who testifies on every possible bill that mentions the word insurance. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we are adjourned.